This is a hangar reserved for galactic messengers and other non-civilian political actors who travel in a ship small enough to safely fit the clearance requirements defined by the port of entry. You can see the port of entry by turning around and walking along the hidden glass walkway in the bottom left corner that are constructed for the purpose of viewing it. This space is reserved for any extra machinery and space needed to work on your ship before it was allowed through into the hangar. This space had a few metal cabinets that were always empty and looked like they had been nuked and bathed in acid 1,000 times. This is what a typical ship looks like. There were different technology bases that were usually easy to tell apart, but there are also some overlapping technologies shared between them. Typically, circular ships like this belonged to a common technology base that was popular among civilians, but there are others, some of which were very different. My ship looked very different, like a bird with closed wings. Military ships were larger and typically looked like a tank. You can easily tell this technology base by the abundance of symmetrical circular structures. This hangar was usually empty or close to it.
Fatality.
This is the entrance to the political area. It was always full of dark hallways that are in a big maze. Maybe your eyes needed to adjust over time, but I found it very difficult to travel. And I was not allowed in, no one was allowed in there. I was only in there twice as a very rare exception. If you look at the front, there's a podium, and I've never got to see anyone use it, but I can only guess that every now and then one of the politicals needed to come out and make an announcement to one or several new arrivals. I just never got to see it being used, but that's what it seemed to have a purpose for. Take a look yourself and make up your own mind.
Fatality.
This is the exact location the matriarch took me to when she confessed a lot of secrets about the governing authority, the universe, and about sending me back. You can see, if you turn around, there's a green table. I have no idea what it does, but it looks like some kind of hologram projection thing or something. There were computers and lights everywhere, but it was very dark. It was lit up a little bit better than the hallways because of the lights, but I couldn't really make much out. It was very dark. In the corner I noticed a computer section that with a screen on it that looked like it was in the shape of a hot water system. The rest of the computers were pretty much box shaped.
Fatality.
When I first went into the political area with the green alien lady, who was a member of my 6-member team, we were taken by a guide, one of the politicals, after talking to them, and they took us into this area, this computer area. It was some kind of important computer room. At the back of the room there was a very important computer that seemed central to the whole room, and it affected a lot of other places as well. And they were very, let's say, scared of anyone going near it. They didn't want anyone near it at all. It was very important. It was very sensitive computer equipment. And we spoke to them. The one at the computer at the back was the one in charge, and she had to do some kind of thing with the computer first, and then we spoke, and she said that we're not supposed to be here, but she understands the situation and the urgency, and she would take us back out, and we would organise to speak to the matriarch herself.
Fatality.
In my story where I said my final goodbyes to the other universe, this is where it happened. This area leads to the offices. This is a very important area because messengers who travel across space will return in decades, perhaps hundreds of years, so their offices and whatever important things in their office that needs to be kept. This is my office. I had this office for thousands of years. I didn't live for thousands of years. I lived across thousands of years, and as a messenger and a traveller, I spent most of that time in a cold sleep, frozen, while I travelled. I stored items here of importance, not that many, but of importance, as you see on the table there. Most important was a wooden totem that ancient humans gave to me under very friendly terms, so that I would never forget them. Over time, that wood kind of rotted away, and I came back one time and it was gone, and they told me that they had to take it. It had become a potential hazard, and they destroyed it. Before it was destroyed, I had already organised to have a metal copy of it made, which is the far right totem you see on the table there. There was another stone totem that was made for me by ancient humans later on. It wasn't as important as the wooden one though, and I was very upset about about returning and losing that wooden totem. But at least I had a metal mould of it that would last. I don't have that anymore either. Storage containers were used for storing any tools or resources needed then and there to work on ships. Working on ships usually involved going to the next hangar, hangar 3, or if it's even a hangar, that's where they will be taken. The storage containers here were for anything that needed to be done here and now, but once or twice they were moved. This is a storage bay for heavy machinery, cranes and the like, that are used for moving the ships into Hangar 3, where they are to be worked on and whatever else needs to be done to them. This was a type of hangar, a little bit different to the first two. This is where the ships were taken to get worked on. There was a lot more machinery there, a lot more cranes and all that kind of thing. Well, you got a gun, now's the time to use it. Blow up the red wall with your gun, and if that's not good enough, go get the boxes a bit further back and shoot them at the wall. You only get to shoot it once, so if it doesn't work, you're going to have to use the boxes to try and push a hole into it.
Fatality.
This is a representation of the buildings that the meddlers lived in from 13,000 years ago. 13,000 years ago, a group of extraterrestrial aliens came to this world and they started kidnapping women, and they said that they were creating children with them, but it wasn't until thousands of years later that I ever got to see any of these children. And it was all secretive at first, and they were like 2 to 3 times the height of a human, and they would easily destroy a human. One of them could. There's no amount of humans that could beat one of them. They would thrash them. So humans were scared of these creatures, and they didn't dare challenge them. And in order to make sure that mankind, and by mankind I'm talking about a specific branch of mankind, in order to make these humans behave themselves and not resist, they were given trinkets and information and things that would pacify them and just make them behave. Little rewards, you might say. Even some limited degree of housing as well. When I saw these buildings at first, I did a full circle around them and to make out what I could. I challenged them, and there's a long story there, but there was one point in my story where the first few of them that I was aware of, I heard that there was a massive colony of them further away, and I went up a hill to see them, to see all of them from a bit higher elevation, and I did so. I traveled all the way there, and I did so, and what I could see was the same copy of the same exact building, just as the couple that I'd seen previously, only this weren't one or two of them. There were dozens, maybe hundreds of them, all the way to the horizon, of the same exact building, made of this same plain white ceramic looking material, all with the same circular fence around them, all the way to the horizon. I don't know how many of them there were. I don't know if they were scattered around the world in other areas. I can just speak for the area that this happened in, and the area that it happened in was somewhere around the eastern part of Iran, maybe even toward the edge of Pakistan, near between the Middle East and India. And where there's if you look at a world map and there's a straight area between the Middle East and India, if you pretty much around like central to that straight area, if you were just good to go down and go inland a bit, that's where it was. It wasn't on the horizon. I'm sorry, it wasn't on the coastline. It was inland a bit, and it was mostly full of grasslands that would pretty much generally flat land. But in the horizon of the main area, there was to the west there was some mountains, and there was water in the mountains, which was where people would go to do important things. There's a lot I could say. I just thought I'd mention that. This is like in a secret area of the game that I put up. So. This is the main hub area for the game. I'm going to work on this more later. This is just a filler and testing area. There's nothing important to the story and the game, or whatever you want to call it. It's just kind of for testing and stuff. So there's probably a few cool things here if you want to play around with some testing stuff. If the game crashes, just Alt F4 and reset it. Just restart again.
Fatality. 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 Fatality.
This area is just a temporary area while I work out to making the elevator work. So this is a way to get there in the time being. Just a reminder though, when you're going down to this elevator, you'll be, like on the actual game map, it's actually really close nearby, but in reality, you'd be somewhere really far away. But because you're going, you might be spending 10 minutes or an hour or whatever in an elevator. There's no way to orientate yourself. You don't know where we are relative to where you were. So this is a completely different area. I could have done this in a new map altogether, but I'm going to try to do everything I can to see if I can fit it into one map so there's no loading times or anything.
Fatality. 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 Fatality.
This is a security checkpoint for entry into secure public areas. Most of what is done here is to identify, log, and scan you for any potential problems, such as an imminent health problem or carrying items that aren't allowed, such as personal weapons, but most importantly, give you any important information, guidance, directions, or advice on any relevant situation going on within. Sometimes there are situations going on that affect someone in a certain way, and things happen, things that are incompatible or whatever, they happen. So sometimes a warning, or avoid this, or you need to do that, or something. As you can see, there are tables on both sides of the fence. There's a reason why. Sometimes people going through the checkpoint area, there are problems and they can't get through, and it takes time to resolve some things. So they would sit at these two tables here, waiting, and they would sometimes either casual conversation or for security reasons as they're trying to get through, to give information as they need, and additional information. They can both sit at this table at opposite sides of the fence. Sometimes it takes a while, it can take several hours, perhaps even days, but pretty much be several hours. This here is the scanner that they put you through, but they don't always use it, so they already know who you are and you've recently been scanned and you're going in and out. they won't rescan you. But this is, if you haven't been there for a while, they'll rescan you. There is a little waiting room. I'm not sure why, but there's a little waiting room at the end of the checkpoint in the entryway to the public area. And it has like a comfortable lounge on each side of the room, shaped in a strange way. The only way to get in through this door into the public area is for someone from the checkpoint area to take you through all these doors. So if you were to come from outside back in, you need to get someone from the checkpoint area to let you back out. I actually had it. It wasn't a big deal, but I knew what I was doing. I chose to sit on those seats to sit down and wait for someone. This is the main public staging area. These areas, there's a lot of them, and you would be grouped in with other extraterrestrial species based on various criteria, like you're near each other, you're similar to each other, whatever. This is important, especially for new arrivals who have never met other species before, because a lot of them get very spooked, especially those that are timid, and it can be a big problem. So this is like an introduction area, and acclimatizing yourself to meeting other species, and there's the whole area is based on this. So this is like the first public area, and once you anything you need from this area, there's a lot of things in this area. Once you're ready to go and do bigger things, you go to the actual full-on areas. So this is like a staging beginning area. I have no idea where this door goes. I can only guess that maybe it's either something to do with the checkpoint people, or more likely the local stores and stuff in the area. Maybe it was some kind of storage area for their stock and stuff like that. I don't know. It's just a guess, but I have no real idea where this goes. This is the first store in the staging area. It was a type of cafe where you could try out food from different alien cultures. Of course, if you actually ate what they ate, it would probably kill you. So in order to serve you anything, they had to know your species and personal physiology to determine what options they can offer you. In most cases, they would offer a substitute similar to the original, but they would try to make as much of it as authentic as they could. Sometimes that included some kind of neutralizing ingredient that bonds to the atoms so that you can't digest it. Most people had nutrient organ implants and didn't need to eat the normal way. For those who didn't, they would eat a tailor-made pill every day. I took a large blue pill every day. These cafes weren't meant for normal meals. They were for learning about other cultures and experiencing it by eating their food.
Fatality. 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 Fatality.
There are a series of stores in this area.
Fatality.
Mostly like for education, information, a few souvenirs. Most of the time they didn't sell anything, it was all free. Sometimes they had souvenirs that they would give to whoever would turn up, at least give you one each. But that depends on the scarcity of the resource, and things can sometimes be free, and then sometimes there's some kind of exchange of some currency involved. But typically, for the most part, they would offer you like one thing for free.
Fatality.
And, a lot of information and all kinds of tutorials, all kinds of
Fatality.
They could do. And so sometimes they'd give you something as well. If you really wanted, they would give you something as well.
Fatality. Fatality.
This is the central area of the staging area. It's very important because if you're spooked by other species, as many are, not all, but many are, you need a place where you can adjust and adapt and get used to meeting others. And this is what this area is for. So if you look around, you'll see walls everywhere, privacy walls everywhere. This is part of, you know, if you are petrified at the sight of a certain species, as many are, you can get out of their sight and you can get them out of your sight and you can go somewhere a little bit more secure and private, but without having full privacy. You can't just shield yourself in a corner. It's designed like this on purpose to acclimatize you to other species. And there was one particular time where I had to spend time with one of them from a group. It's a long story, I won't mention it here. I'll explain it later. This is a big lookout area. There was a big open space in front of this, and far away there were other structures and buildings and stuff like that, but there was this big chasm in between, a big empty space, and this was like at the edge of it.
Fatality.
This is where everything really opens up. So you're now past the staging area where everyone meets everyone. So this is a big open area, whereas it's the main hub for all kinds of places, which you'll see further down the road. Here there are two choices. You go down the stairs here, you go back to pretty much the staging area, but for the species that are designated to this staging area, you have your own residencies where you sleep in a rest area, medical and stuff like that, things that are related to your group and your group of species delegated in this area. So that's all these resources dedicated to you. If you go down the road to the right, that's where you go to the open area, the hub where it connects to all different areas. So left goes to your basically your personal stuff, right goes to everything else. These are elevators that lead to specific personalized areas, like, for example, toilets. And that is a long, complicated topic in itself. It'll be explained elsewhere. But these elevators, they go to certain timely resource places. This path leads to all kinds of other civilian areas on a broader scale.
Fatality.
This is the main medical area for the group of species delegated to this area. There are other medical facilities dedicated to other groups all over the place as well, each their own group. It's not just one species, but a group of species based on various criteria. There are other areas as well that kind of loosely relate to medical stuff, but this is for actual medical stuff. If you're sick or you need help with something, you need any kind of medical treatment or something, whatever you want to call it, for something, this is where you go. Any medical problems. This area is for the medical staff. Now, obviously, I had no reason to go in here, so I never did. Not that I would have been allowed to anyway. This is the residencies. Basically, your sleeping quarters. There was no luxurious, massive Star Trek quarters in this. No, it was, you get a very tiny compressed room with a tiny bed on it. It's just for sleeping, that's it. Empty room with empty tiny room with a bed in it. Now, I was asked one time, someone said, like, don't you want somewhere bigger? And I was like, this is all I'm only in this room to sleep. I've got things to do outside when I'm sleeping. I don't care where I am. So there were better places than what I was given. I never saw any, but I was first given a tiny room with a really basic bed in it. I don't know what any other quarters look like because I never went into any of them, but that's what I was given, and I was offered something better. This is a reception stall that would do what you'd expect it to do. Just ask some questions you need to find your way, or any information you need to know about the place or whatever. This is what it's for. Just basic guidance and stuff.
Fatality.
It might sound strange to have a biological area, but because of hazards and all kinds of other problems, it's separated in a completely different section than everything else. So this is a very complicated and networked area. So there's all kinds of areas that are free to move around in, and there's all kinds of quarantine zones, and there'd be with security or places you're just not allowed at all, at least for a time, and it kind of changes as time goes on, and different you'd be cleared to go in one area but not another because of potential hazards combining with other hazards. It's a big complicated maze and a mess, but there's a lot of security involved in this area because of hazards. And if you went in here, you'd be free to go here, there, and then not free to go here or there, and then that can change. You can go again tomorrow and it'll be different depending on what's going on.
Fatality.
This is an information board, or series of them. It contains information on pretty much like if you go to like an airport or a train station or something, you get big boards of this information. It's kind of like that, only it's not just for like traveling and locations and stuff. There's all kinds of information on this regarding the entire mobile fortress. And there's other areas just like this. It helps you navigate, and it gives you information that you might need to know. As you can see, it's in a main area before you move on to wherever location, so it contains that information you need.
Fatality. Fatality.
Research area for mainly this section of the mobile fortress, but there's other information here that you can get in other research centers, but this is more focused information that relates to the local area. So the species that are think of this, you have species that are really far away, and any information you have is going to be thousands, tens of thousands of years out of date. So this is more updated, local information. The closer the information is to home, the more valid it is, typically. So there's kind of like a general base stock of information in any of these research centres. There's also, each has their own additional information with piles and piles of information. And this is different than the main staging area in the fact that people don't typically serve you and hear you This is like a library kind of thing, where you can go through this information yourself. This is for people who have already know what they're doing. This is the main administrator area of this whole section of the mobile fortress. There are many such sections in there. They're usually, depending on what kind of security they are, they can be separated by checkpoints, and then we can other checkpoints and sensitive areas and stuff like that. Things are divided into sections, and this is the main administrator area for this entire section that you're seeing here. This area is where real work is done, so it's the more important stuff. The main reason why people travel hundreds of years each way. In what you leave your planet or wherever you're from, by the time you get to your destination, everyone's long dead. By the time you get back, your world might not even exist anymore. Who knows what you return to? So if you go to the mobile fortress, hell, if you travel anywhere, you need to be doing so for very serious reasons. You're leaving everything behind. So typically people come here to do some kind of work, which will inevitably, in hundreds of years or whatever, end up benefiting their own world, or at least sharing information with the rest of the galaxy, and exposing your ideas and testing them. And this also involves debating platforms and stuff. That's a long story, but this is where a lot of the important work, that the main reason that people usually come here for. Not necessarily always, but in most cases people come here for some kind of important work to do. And this is a very large area connected to all other work areas and stuff in a big network.
Fatality. 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 Fatality.